Hello world and hello amazing Philippines. Good day. Today we're going to discuss module 1 and that is the introduction to facilitating learning, or we can have it facilitating learner-centered teaching. And for our learning outcomes, we have the following. Number 1 is to define terms related and concepts related to the learning and the learning process. The second one is identify the principles of learning. The third is familiarize with the different models of learning. The fourth is integrate the principles of teaching and learning in the lesson planning that we have. Then create graphic organizer regarding the lesson presented in module 1. And lastly, apply and reflect on the types of learning that we have. It is said that facilitating learner-centered teaching is a potent tool to help pre-service and practicing teachers understand, of course, the fundamental pedagogical principles, processes, and practices that are anchored on learner-centeredness and other educational psychologies, as they, of course, apply to facilitate the delivery of teaching and learning process. I have here a quotation in the next slide, or in this slide that you can see in the screen, and it talks about, of course, facilitating learning. And here you can have the quotation of William Arthur Ward that says, study while others are sleeping, work while others are loafing, prepare while others are playing, and dream while others are wishing. So these quotations would connote, of course, positivity, that we need to exert more effort in order to, of course, facilitate learning. And speaking of course, your studies, of course, you need to double time. You need to work hard in order to, of course, attain good grades and, of course, have learning for this particular subject. And if you notice, there is this um, part of this quotation where prepare while others are playing. So we need to dedicate and have, of course, extra effort in performing whatever task that we have. And of course, we need to have a big dream. But that dream does not, of course, end with a dream. We need to work hard for it. Okay, and we need to, of course, attain that dream. So we are inspired, of course, by this quotation of Sir William Arthur Ward. Okay, let's define first terminologies related to, of course, facilitating learner-centered teaching. So we have here learning. It is defined as the process of acquiring knowledge or skill through study, experience, or teaching. Take note, there are three words here, okay, that would remind us, of course, of the learning. So the first is thorough, no, or through study. Second one is experience, and of course, teaching. So we can learn or acquire knowledge through these. We need to study, we need to experience something, and or of course we need to teach or somebody teach us. Okay. Or the second is, of course, learning is an experience that brings about a relatively permanent change in the behavior. So take note of the word change. So there, okay, is it that we need to, of course, have permanent change with our behavior. But taking of talking of course, the behavior that we have, it should be good behavior. Then learning is the cognitive process of acquiring skill or knowledge. When we say cognitive is, of course, our mind, the intellect, okay, in acquiring skill or knowledge. And learning is the change or a change in neutral function as a consequence of experience. So as more experience or experiences that we have, the more learning we can probably obtain from it. And it is learning is an increase in the amount of response, rules, and concepts in the memory of intelligent system. So of course, these response, rules, the concepts that we have, okay, can be stored in our mind, and probably we can use that, no? Okay, in different ways, wherein of course we can have that as part of the learning process. We have also the principles of learning. And we have 9 principles here that we can probably learn. The first is learning is an experience which occurs inside the learner and is activated by the learner. Take note, no one can force you. Okay. Even if teacher will force you to learn, if you don't like, then of course there is no learning that will happen. That is why it is activated by the learner. So if the learner is ready to learn, it's nice. Okay, because uh, there is really, of course, learning for that matter, because there is eagerness, okay, and willingness to learn. The second is learning is the discovery of person's meaning and relevance of ideas. Probably some, no, some students or some learners could not find the exact meaning, or probably the meaning of what is should be, no, about the lesson, the subject matter, and etc. But through, of course, learning, there is the discovery of this person. Okay. And basing on that meaning, and of course, uh, the relevance of these ideas, this can be, of course, helpful for, of course, the students and the learners, okay, in applying in whatever situations they have in life. The third is, of course, learning, which is being considered as the behavioral change. It's a consequence of experience. So, as what I've always telling you, that experience is the best teacher. Then learning is a cooperative and collaborative process. There are two there things. The first is cooperative. Okay, we need others also to learn. That's why we collaborate. And there is, of course, cooperativeness. Okay. The fifth is, of course, learning is an evolutionary process. It's just like a cycle wherein you have, of course, processes and, of course, stages like stage one, two, three, four, and so on. Okay. Or step one, two, three, four, and so on. So that's it. And take note, learning is sometimes a painful process. Of course, many of you would agree with this, that the more painful, the more, of course, learning that we can have, or we should reflect on. And then, of course, in learning, one of the richest, of course, resources of learning is the learner himself. Yes, that's why the readiness of the learner is very necessary, because that's the learner is the one of the richest, no, resources of learning. If we invest with our learners nowadays, of course, we can guarantee that we have, of course, a good future. We can guarantee that there is no, or we have a good leader that will lead our nation, and so on. And number 8 is the process of learning is emotional as well as intellectual. Yes, we need to use our heart. Okay, we need to use our mind in order to, of course, decide on whatever things that we have. It's better if we can balance both emotional and intellectual aspect of life. And then, of course, the last is the process of learning, or problem solving and learning are highly and individual. Yes, very true. Because at the end of the day, it is you as a learner, or probably as a student, who will solve your own problem. And sometimes it's not just probably easy deciding on, and of course solving your problem as well. So that's it. Again, we have 9, okay, principles of learning. We have also the WH in learning. So if you notice, you can see here who, okay, which is the first WH in learning, and it talks about the person or the agent who is no being referred to there. That's the who, okay, or the person or the agent. Like for example, a student, learner, or a teacher, for that matter. The next is where, and it is asking about, of course, a place or a position where is the setup, or probably the setting, okay, that we can have for our role play. Okay, the third one is when. It is asking about time, occasion, and of course moment. Take note, time, occasion, and moment. So when is probably the Dinagyang Festival. So it's probably during, of course, the third week of January. That's when. Okay. And the fourth one is what? It's asking for a specific thing. okay, or object. What will happen during the Nagyang? Of course, there are tribes who will perform and, of course, show or showcase uh, the history na, of the Ilonggo. And the next is why. So it talks about, of course, reason. So it is asking for a reason, a purpose, or explanation for that matter, why. And the other one is how. It does not start with the WH, but it starts with H. So it's how, asking for a way, a form, or manner. In other words, it talks about style, the techniques, the strategy on how, okay, we're going to implement these and that, or probably have our lesson or lecture. So that's it. Okay, then we have also the model of learning. So you can see in your screen the Denison and Crick model, wherein we have, of course, the do, review, learn, and apply. So if you notice, no, okay, when we have the do, okay, the activity, that's actually the activity in learning. And the need for reflection and evaluation is known as, of course, the review. After that, there is, of course, the extraction of meaning from the review. So from review to learn. Okay. And lastly, of course, the planned use of learning in future action is known as, of course, apply. Supposing there is something wrong with one of these processes that we have, we just go back there and, of course, have troubleshooting a bit. Okay, another, of course, theory that we can have is the five main theories of learning. So it starts with, of course, the behaviorism, no? Wherein it talks about stimulus and response. We have also cognitivism, okay, that shows, of course, the flow of knowledge from the word cognition, the mind. Okay, we have also the constructivism, which we form mental models for that construction. Okay, and we have experientialism. It talks about learning experiences, and we agree earlier that the more, of course, experiences, the more learning we should have. Okay, and of course, the last is social and contextual. So we learn from, of course, and with others. That's why we need to have society. Okay, we need to have groups and so on. Where in, of course, it should have the context. Okay, it's contextual. Okay, by nature. Again, the five main theories of learning are behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, perennialism, and social and contextual. Okay, let's have the components of learning. There are actually nine. So it started with, of course, the drive. Okay, what makes you, of course, decide to take education? It's the drive. Okay, it it is somehow related to, of course, your passion, okay, your goal, and so on. Then there is the key stimuli, followed by generalization. Okay, then we have discrimination. We separate what is good and bad. We discriminate, okay, from each other. Then responses, and the next is, of course, reinforcement. We have okay, retention, extension, and, of course, spontaneous recovery. Or we can have it by this way: drive, key stimuli, generalization, reinforcement, response, discrimination, retention, extension, and, of course, spontaneous recovery for that matter. So that's the correction there, of course, that we can have. Again, start with drive, key stimuli, generalization, reinforcement. We have also, of course, responses, discrimination, of course, retention. Okay, what is good should be retained. What is bad should be, okay, probably eliminated. Extinction, and, of course, spontaneous recovery. Let's have the next. You can see here the experiential learning cycles. And we have three authors there. We have Kolb, we have Greenaway, and, of course, we have Hargeries, and, of course, Scon. Okay, the colors would signify who is the author that probably referred to that action. Like for violet, you can have, of course, um, David Cole. For, of course, maroon, you can have Roger Greenaway. For blue text, you can have, of course, Chris and Donald none, for that matter. So in the experiential learning cycles, we have four. we started with act, and it is being referred to as concrete experience by Coe, okay, or facts. And it talks about what happened. Okay, according to Greenaway and of course Argyris and Scon, they referred to the act as the theory of action. Okay, the second, of course, cycle or process that we can have is reflect. Okay, again, reflect. So in David Cobb's point of view, it is a reflective observation. However, Greenaway mentioned about feelings. Okay, and the question is that, what did I experience? Is it painful? It is hard? Is it easy? And it is happy. So that's it. And we have, of course, according to Chris and Donald, a reflect means as to assess behavior and the consequence for that matter. The third process is conceptualize. So here, according to Kolb, it is abstract conceptualization. However, of course, Sir Roger emphasized the findings. Okay, and the question is that why did this happen? And lastly, of course, from Chris and Donald, they mentioned about conceptualize as to revise theory. The last, of course, stage or process that we can have with experiential learning cycles is that apply. So, according to Kolb, when we say, of course, apply, it is active experimentation. For Sir Roger Greenaway, when we say apply, it talks about the features. What will I do? Okay, for later, probably application. And according to Chris and Donald, the apply is to implement revised theory. Okay, so that's it. Because this is a cycle, of course, you can go back to the process or stage wherein, okay, probably you're not successful with. Okay, again, the four experiential learning cycles are act, reflect, conceptualize, and of course apply. If you're going to have the acronym, you have of course the ARCA. ARCA. Act. A is for act. R is reflect. C is conceptualize. And D is of course apply. Okay, let's have the next. We have the elements of effective learning. So you can see here, there are actually, okay, how many? There are 6 elements of effective learning to be, of course, effective. So the first is um, environment. Okay. Environment is something that we can control. As probably teacher, we can control this environment. We need to provide the fun and of course conducive, okay, environment for that matter. We have also prior knowledge, but of course, whether you like it or not, prior knowledge can be of course with the pupil or the students that we have. Can you still recall, of course, the lesson about schema? Okay, and the metacognition that we have. Okay, each of your students or learners or probably pupils soon, okay, have proper prior knowledge. Then we also discuss about the readiness. Are the students ready? Okay, so that's the question. And then we have the aptitude. Okay, then quality of teaching. Okay, goals and motivations. Let's discuss quality of teaching together with, of course, the environment that we have. Quality of teaching is something that we can manage. So therefore, of course, we're expected to deliver the craft. That's why we need to have quality of teaching. When I say, of course, goals and motivation, it pertains to, of course, the goals of the students, or how motivated are the students, or the motivation that you're going to have, or the goals that you're going to set for your learners or students at the end of the day. Again, there are 6 elements of effective learning. The first is environment, prior knowledge, readiness, aptitude, quality of teaching, and goals or motivation. Let's go further. Okay, you can have here the cone of learning, and this is divided into 2. If you notice, there are 2 types of learning that we can have, the passive and of course active. Okay, and the um, legend there would of course tell us about, of course, the learning retention rates of students using, of course, different, no? teaching materials, and of course, even experiences that we have. Take a look with the lecture. If you conduct lecture in the class, okay, 5% will, of course, be retained by students. Take note, that's very low. Okay, but if students will read, okay, or if we're going to read about, of course, a certain topic or lesson, 10% can be, of course, recalled. Okay. Then we have, of course, the use of audiovisuals. 20% of course, the learning will have took place using, of course, the audiovisual. Okay. And in having, of course, demonstration, which is 30%. Probably can add on, of course, to the learning of your students, having, of course, demonstration. So from, of course, 1 to 50, that is the average, that is passive learning. And of course, from 51 to 90 to now to 100 and so on, of course, that's active learning that we can have. Okay, but going back to this cone of learning, if you conduct discussion group, you 50% of course of the lesson can be retained. It talks about the retention rates. However, of course, if you're going to practice that by doing, which is the second to the highest one, 75% of course the lesson can be of course retained by the students. 75 learning by doing. Okay, supposing as a teacher, your task for today is to write their name. So they need to practice doing writing of the names and so on. So in doing so, of course, the 75% can be retained for that matter. And the last is, of course, teaching others. So this is the highest. So we are assuming that, of course, you are done with, of course, lecture reading, audiovisual, demonstration, discussion group, and practice by doing. So 90% of the lessons can be retained. So that's nice, no? Okay, so we need to focus, my dear students, about, of course, active learning. But of course, we can go directly with the active learning without, of course, the passive learning that we can have. Okay, we have also principles of teaching and learning. Okay, wherein, of course, the question, students learn best when they, okay, what they're going to do, number one, understand how they learn and work to improve as learners. They need to understand why you are here, or probably, okay, about the learning and working to, of course, or work to improve us, of course, the learner. Whether we like it or not, we need to learn and work. The second is, of course, students learn best when they know their individual learning styles and are supported by and respected. Oh, it makes us probably good if, of course, we are supported by a family and loved ones together with our teachers. Okay. And there is always individual learning styles among our students. So we need to embrace that and we need to accept that students different learn in different way. Okay, then we have another is that students learn best when they have the opportunity to learn from others who are different than they are. So inclusivity, no, inclusive education is present also here, wherein uh, the more we include some, okay, or many or all of the students in the class, much better, and they can learn from it. Okay, and students learn best when they challenge themselves to learn at high levels in their preparation for college and beyond. So that's it. Supposing they're in college, of course, in preparing with the future, with a job. And lastly, students learn best when they learn content deeply and think critically about what they learn by spending extended time on core academic skills. Take note, to learn, okay, they learn content deeply and think critically. So we need to have a depth with our content. Okay, and of course, we need to become critical solver of our own problems. Okay, so by doing that, of course, we are extended, okay, or we're spending extended time on core academic skills for that matter. So that's very nice. Okay, let's discuss, of course, the learner. Okay, or the learners. So who are the learners? Okay, that's with S, so plural. Okay, but I would like to give a meaning for the word learners. Okay, probably a singular one. So it is the core. The learner is the core of the teaching and learning process, meaning the center. Without, of course, the learner, nothing will happen. So it is from him that, of course, revolves all activities related to classroom activities. And he is the person who receives instruction from the teacher. So we need to classify the learner. So we have a pupil, okay, which is in the learner, which, okay, a pupil is the learner in, of course, the elementary level. So from grades, from kinder, okay, you can include those, of course, kinder, then grade 1 to 6. Then we have, of course, also the student. So a student is the learner who attends an institution beyond elementary level, meaning grade 7, okay, until, of course, college or reach college level. So again, okay, with the learners that we have, of course, the pupil and, of course, the students. It's just easy to recall, okay, because pupil refers to students in the elementary level. Why? Student can refer, of course, to the high school, the junior high, the senior high, and even, of course, the college level students. Okay, let's have the nature of the learner. So if you take a look, of course, each learner is unique or different from each other. And the learner rather is an embodied spirit, okay, and a union of the sentiment body and the rational soul. His body, of course, experience sensations as what we have now. Of course, we have the senses. We're ready to be used now in order to learn. Okay, take note. His body experience sensations and feels pleasure. Okay, and of course, pain. However, his soul is the principle of spiritual acts. So the source of intellectual observation and self-reflection and free rational volition. Okay, so we have actually two fundamental equipment of the learner that we need to have: the cognitive faculties and the appetitive faculties. Let's have, of course, the appetitive. When we say appetitive, it talks about the feelings, no, the emotion, and the rational will of course, the students. While when we say cognitive faculties, it talks about the five senses that we have, like the sense of sight, touch, of course, the sense of smell, sense of seeing, okay, and so on. Then we have, of course, the word instinct. All of us have the instinct that we have. We can imagine things, huh? For imagination, we can, of course, have the memory, the gift of recall, and of course, the intellect that we can have. Again, the two fundamental equipment for of the learner are, okay, the cognitive faculties and, of course, the appetitive faculties for that matter. Let's have the characteristics of learner. Okay, so take note. Learners differ in the following because each one of us rather, okay, or each one of you is unique. Okay, so we have, of course, the following. Huh? The first is ability. So we differ in the ability. For some, probably they can perform, okay, by just 30 minutes or 30 or 1 hour for that matter. But for some, they can, of course, finish that in 2 hours or 3 hours. So it talks about ability. It determines, of course, their capacity to understand and assimilate information to their own use and application. We have also the aptitude. Okay, when we say, of course, the aptitude, it refers to the student's innate talent or gift. Take note, all of us have the talent and the gift. Okay, probably if that is not that good, okay, your talent was not discovered. So we need to, of course, give time for, of course, the ability of our learners, supposing you are already teaching. Then we have, of course, interest. So learners vary in activities that are undertaken due to a strong appeal or attraction. So each of our learners or students have, of course, their interests. Some wanted to have, of course, play a game, no, after class, but some would, if their things, then probably go home and relax and chat for us. So it's interest. Okay, the number four is family and cultural background. So of course we differ from each other because of this. Even our socioeconomic background, no, manifest a wide range of behavior due to the differences in upbringing, and of course practices. Now, sa kanya-kanya tayo. Probably, of course, have a different culture than mine or than ours. Okay, then lastly, we have, of course, the attitudes. Take note, aptitude is different from the attitudes. You say, of course, attitude, it refers to an individual perspective or disposition. Each of us, of course, have different perspective and we have different dispositions in life. But take note, we have some positive attitudes, okay, that we can have probably in life, like curiosity. We need to be curious, responsible. It's responsibility, creativity, huh? Creative, we need to become creative, and of course, persistence. Again, learners differ in the following. The first is, of course, ability. We have second is aptitude. The third is interest. The fourth is family and cultural background. And lastly, of course, attitudes. So that's it. We have also, okay, um, an acronym, I cared, which probably talks about what is learner standard teaching. So according to Rangduin et al., okay, in 2021, learner centered teaching is, okay, summarized in this acronym, I cared. I stands for interactive. Okay, the second one is innovative, and of course, interdisciplinary. So it started with I. Letter C, okay, the second letter is collaborative and contextualize. Therefore, we need to collaborate, and of course, we need to contextualize what we are teaching. Okay, the question is it, okay, applicable, okay, with our students? If not, probably we need to, okay, um change the strategy, the strategy rather, okay, and of course even the methods and style. And the third letter in the I cared is active. Okay, students, now it refers to students to be active, even teachers, and of course the curriculum should be authentic, the performance task should be authentic. And the next letter is R. It, of course, resembles responsive and, of course, relevant. So we need to be responsive. And, of course, we need to be to belong. Okay, that's why it has relevant. Okay. So the next letter is, of course, E, which talks about exploratory and experiential. And the last is, of course, D, developmentally appropriate. So we need to consider, okay, also this status na to have this developmentally appropriate. Okay. And we have, of course, the 7 types of learning according to Bronner et al. In 2018. So the first is, of course, the motor learning. Example is being maintained, okay, as part of one's life, like walking. Some, of course, Centralian are having their walks now. Okay, running, jumping, climbing, and of course, the like. So these involve motor coordination. Take note, with motor learning, we involve motor coordination. The second is verbal. Now, some, of course, of you have these gifts about verbal learning now. So this refers to spoken language, as well as the communication devices, the word, no? Symbols, words, symbols, signs, figures, and of course the sounds are some tools used. So as a teacher, someday we need to prepare these, no? Okay, the verbal learning that we can have probably for our students, and it refers to the spoken language. Okay, the third is, of course, concept learning. So this type uses, of course, the higher order mental process, the HOTS. Okay, like one's ability to think, analyze, and reason. So the processes involved in this area, these are called, of course, generalization and abstraction. Okay, again, generalization and abstraction. So that's it. These are the two processes involved, no? Okay, in this concept learning. Then the next is, of course, discrimination learning, from the word discriminate. So this is to differentiate between stimuli and responding appropriately to the stimuli. So example, the person is able to distinguish the sound of horns or of a vehicle like ambulance, bus, no, motorcycle, and etc. So discrimination, we need to discriminate. Okay, so we need to discriminate between the true and of course the false. So if you can take it that probably you are different, okay, from the other one, of course, there is that chance that you have, of course, this discrimination learning. Then we have, of course, the next is the learning of principle. So here it talks about, of course, scholarly thing or things like it is. This is related to science, mathematics, grammar, and the like. So concepts about the topic. Then we have, of course, formulas, the laws, and correlations. Okay, should be type of this learning. That's principle. Then we have, of course, problem solving. The word problem, and of course, the other word is solving. So you need to solve the problem. So a higher order thinking process. Okay, as being probably mentioned with this problem solving, this requires cognitive abilities like the way you reasoning, and you need to think critically, no? Okay, then we have observation, generalization, and of course, imagination. So that's the thing that will happen when you have, of course, problem solving. Okay, then we have lastly, among the types of learning, we have the attitude learning. So the focusing is more the attitude or character. Take note, attitude determines and predicts behavior, and attitudes, no, learned influence a person's behavior towards people, things, objects, or ideas. So again, the types of learning that we can have, okay, are the following: attitude learning, we have problem solving, we have, of course, learning of principles, then we have discrimination learning, then we have the concept learning, and lastly we have, of course, verbal learning and the motor learning. So these are the 7 types of learning according to Bronner et al. In 2018. So that's it. Okay. So here are, of course, the reference that we can have based on, of course, our lesson, okay, for today. And of course, this is your Sir A saying thank you, okay, for listening. And I hope you learned something today. Okay. As I'm always saying, we need to have padayon para sa katutom kag kaalam sang aton nga, of course, to attain, of course, our goals and dreams and aspirations in life. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for today, and of course, I wish rather the best in all of you. Thank you, and good day.